HubSpot analyzed their user base of tens of thousands of clients and found that LinkedIn was the highest converting and highest returning channel across all the other major advertising platforms, with roughly 3 times the conversion rate from other channels. Now, somebody who's managed millions of dollars in paid advertising spend profitably across dozens of different industries and across all the major advertising platforms, what we've found is that LinkedIn is a very unforgivable advertising platform. Meaning, if you do not know what you're doing, you will burn money incredibly quickly. Unlike something like Meta Ads, it's a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more beginner friendly. Now, in today's video, I'm going to screen share and show you guys how to set up a LinkedIn advertising campaign from scratch. What we're going to cover in today's video is the campaign setup, the pixel setup and the tracking, the targeting and the audience selection, the ad creative, and the performance tracking and optimization. Now, before we get into the meat of the video, if you would just like my team to run these ads for you, click the link below and schedule a time to speak with somebody on my team. Also, if you're interested in just doing some consulting with us at a much lower cost, then go ahead and click that link as well, and we'll get you taken care of. Now, without further ado, follow me on my screen share here. I'm going to show you exactly how to set this up step by step. Okay, first and foremost, you're going to go to linkedin.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to select advertise. Now, as you can see, this is a dummy account. We have hundreds of accounts that we're actively managing. You can see a handful of our clients here. Now, let's select this client here and take a look into their account. Okay, so as you can see, LinkedIn ads is broken up into 3 categories. You have campaign groups, campaigns, and ads. Depending on your account right now, you might have a slightly different setup. They're rolling out some changes to the names of these tabs at this moment in time. But what you have to understand is the campaign group is meant to separate your campaigns based on their individual business objectives. Meaning you have one campaign group that is for recruiting, one that is for the acquisition of a customer for product number 1, and then one campaign geared for your low ticket product or service that is number 2. All of those different business objectives need to be separated at the campaign group level. Now, within each campaign level, let's say for this particular client here, they are a roofing agency trying to generate leads and meetings with prospective roofing companies that are interested in their services. So as you can see, inside of the campaign group, there's different campaigns that specify different targeting options. Now, on LinkedIn, those different targeting options are going to come down to the different job titles, different industries, different company sizes, different job seniorities, different groups, different skills. Okay, so let's take a moment and click into one of these campaigns and see what settings that we selected for this particular client. Now, first and foremost, if you're advertising inside the United States, just select permanent location, not recent or permanent, just select permanent location. We don't want to target people that are traveling through the United States. Those people are much less likely to have a qualified business for this particular offering. Just select people that are permanent, okay? Now, you can see here for this particular client, we selected people with just the job title roofer with no other additional filters. Now, this is more of a trained pixel, so we're doing less here, but with newer accounts, there's typically much more filters in place, and there's also exclusions saying exactly what we don't want for these particular campaigns. Meta Ads is going to do a lot of the trimming for you in terms of wasted advertising spend. In other words, if it's noticing that conversions and qualified conversions aren't coming from a certain segment of audience, a certain company, or a certain type of user, it will very quickly cut that advertising spend from the budget. However, LinkedIn ads is a different story. You need to forcibly cut spending and actively track to see which company industries, which job titles, and which targeting parameters are not yielding you the most results. Continue to double down on the 20% that's driving all the results and trimming the fat everywhere else. Now, in terms of targeting options that you have available to you, number 1 is you can target based on the company. Okay, you can target based on a company industry, company revenue, which is a predictive model. Users are not inputting their actual and direct revenue into the LinkedIn profile. This is a predictive model that my LinkedIn rep says is about 80% accurate. And then you have the company size, which is manually inputted by the business owner. And that will give you ranges ranging from myself only to 2 to 10 employees, 11 to 50, 50 to 200, all the way upwards to 10,000 employees plus. Now, go ahead and select the range that you think works best for your business. We find the most success in targeting businesses with less than 50 employees. Now, job titles is going to be an incredible option for you to start. However, oftentimes you're going to find it's a very small audience, and there may be other job titles that are very, very similar to that job title that would have been a great fit that were excluded because they weren't a perfect match to this particular job title. So one option that you could potentially do instead of a job title is you could select job seniorities. You can't have a job title and a job seniority, but what you can do is select either or. If you select job seniority, the options that you have is owner, partner, CXO, VP, director, manager. We're typically not really going to these segments here unless it's a career consulting or career coaching offer where we're deliberately trying to target somebody more junior in the organization and helping them to land a better role that is more senior or at an adjacent company. Okay, but most of the time, if we're targeting B2B, we want to target decision makers, and we have a top-down approach, meaning we're going after the direct business owner, the direct decision maker, the business owner themselves, and then hopefully we are getting buy-in and a commitment from that business owner, and then they may relay that to their director of marketing to oversee the implementation of our particular service into their business. Where we're having very little to no success is where you target this middle up approach, where you may target the marketing director or the marketing manager, and then this person, we target this person, have a great meeting with this person, but he has to get buy-in from the owner of the business. And then when he pitches our service to the owner, it takes them time. He doesn't really do my business justice and talk about what we do in an effective manner, and we just lose our momentum, and it's typically not that successful. Unless that person has discretion, we do not want to be targeting them. We don't want to be forced to traverse through the company web and get buy-in from all these different shareholders from different parts of the company. It definitely has worked in the past, but we just prefer to go with decision makers who can make a quick decision on that call and then roll it out with the rest of the team. Some other targeting options that you may want to leverage are years of experience. This is very important for a lot of our career consulting offers that we're pushing on this platform. Typically, people aren't going to want to switch out of their role if they've just been at a company for 12 months, for less than 12 months. So typically what we'll do is we'll set a filter that they need to have at least 1 year of experience in their current role before they be privy to or interested in switching to another company. Now, you have to use your own common sense and your own common judgment in terms of what makes sense for your particular business, but just know that years of experience is a very important filter that you should be leveraging for your business. Now, member skills is a very important targeting option that we have at our disposal as LinkedIn advertisers. We don't typically start with member skills because people are kind of throwing them in there very informally, and it's very unclear if they're exactly who we're meant to be targeting or if it's something that they had a bit of experience with one time in an old role a while back. However, you can absolutely test it, but a better indicator of if that person is your ICP is not whether it's listed as a skill in their profile, but it's more correlated to what their level of seniority is, how many years of experience it is, or their job title there. You also have the ability to be able to target based on certain degrees, fields of study, or the schools that they attended. You have the ability to target based on age and gender, although for this particular platform, most of the targeting is done by job titles and industry. You're not typically adding additional filters in terms of demographics on there as well. Another thing that we're having a lot of success with is targeting member groups. This is very important. Sometimes you will exhaust a certain job title, meaning you'll have diminishing returns as you spend more and more down that one particular job title, or you may exhaust a certain member skill, but these groups sometimes have tremendous upward scale potential, and they allow us to capture a different pocket of traffic that is very relevant to our ideal customer. Now, once you've specified your audience, you want to be very cognizant that you're adding different filters and you're being cognizant of the and or function. You can tell the algorithm that they need to have both of these criteria, which will typically reduce the size of the overall audience, or you can select that you want either or of these criteria, which will expand the audience size over time. And then lastly, you may want to add some exclusions here and remove people that may have the inverse of what you're looking for. As a basic one that we typically recommend is just exclude the industries that wouldn't make sense. You'd be surprised, even if you're targeting the construction industry, once you remove and you add some of those exclusions towards all the people that are not in the construction industry, you'll see your overall audience size reduce, which means that LinkedIn was still planning to expand slightly past people who are just in the construction industry. So as you can see, if I target people that are in the construction industry, okay, that's 8 million people here, okay, and you would think that you would only be targeting people that are in the construction industry, but watch what happens. If you narrow here, or if you exclude people, and you go to company, and you go to industry, and you start excluding some of these other people, notice how it just dropped off there. 400,000 people were part of that audience labeled as construction, and as you can see, it just continues to drop. So approximately 20 to 30% of my overall audience would have gone towards people that may have dabbled in construction but aren't full-on interested in construction. So it's very, very clear that you ask yourself, who am I targeting? Clearly lay that out inside of the targeting options here. And then who am I definitely not targeting, and clearly label that as exclusion, because LinkedIn is biased to group in some of these other adjacent industries because they are incentivized to sell their inventory. There's certain advertising slots that people may not want, and I think they're very, very good at grouping those in to make sure that none of their inventory is going to waste. Now, typically in terms of healthy audience sizes, we're seeing anything from 10,000 people up to about 1 or 2 million people is kind of the sweet spot. Anything bigger than 1 or 2 million, that's kind of pushing it. Our sweet spot is right around that few 100,000 person audience size. I think that's a really good size that you can target on. And then over time, you want to make sure that you continue to trim that you're not reinvesting into channels and into industries that aren't driving revenue, aren't driving results. And we're going to show you in a second how to optimize your campaigns to find out where you're not converting as high as you could be and how to trim that out. Okay, we're going to show you that very shortly. Now, after you've selected the audience, you're going to select the advertising format. Single image. Now, unlike Meta, where you can have video or image inside one particular campaign, LinkedIn is requiring you to select the format at the campaign level, and then all of your advertisements have to follow that format. So you can't mix and match videos and image in the same campaign. So you have an image ad format, carousel image format, a video ad format, a messaging ad format. Okay, this is different from Meta and Instagram. Now, Meta and Instagram ad, if you're running a messaging campaign, the ad is the same. It's being served on the news feed, and the CTA pulls you into the messaging inbox to where you can trade DMs with the prospect to book a call. On LinkedIn, it's different. It is actually placing the ad inside of the messenger's inbox. We found this to be incredibly effective for busy entrepreneurs and business owners who maybe aren't scrolling quite as much, but they're definitely checking their inbox. I won't go into all these different placements here, but another great one that you should explore and test is you have the document style of advertisement. This is where you're going to create a PDF, brochure, a white paper, could be 10, 20, 30 pages long. And what you're going to do, and you're going to provide that audience a sample to read a portion of that document, and then it'll prompt them and say, if you want to unlock the rest of this document, click here and fill out your contact information. Very, very great strategy we leverage in the financial advisory space. Now here you'll select your URL parameters that you want to use for third-party tracking. This is very important. Now in terms of your bidding strategy, what we're typically recommending is a cost cap or a maximum bidding strategy. With a cost cap bidding strategy, you're selecting a maximum that you're willing to pay, and then the platforms will give you as much reach as they can within your current budget. So if you select your daily budget is $100 a day, you set a cost cap for $5, you might find it spends $50, or it might spend $0 if it's way too low relative to the auction to what other people are paying for that. And then if you creep it up to a $6 cost cap, you might find your lead cost raises 20-30%, but you're now able to spend 20-30% more of your budget. So ask yourself, maximum delivery can work. It'll guarantee you're spending the most amount of your full budget, but the costs are typically much higher. We prefer to start with cost caps to keep our costs low. We're typically going to get cheap leads, or our budget won't be spent at all. Okay, now this is very important. There's two types of funnels that you can leverage with LinkedIn paid advertising. Number one is you can run a lead form. This is where the prospect will submit their contact information directly on the platform. You don't need to set up third-party tracking because everything's happening on the platform. The LinkedIn profile knows and understands if a conversion event has happened or not. Conversely, if you send somebody off the platform to a landing page where you're hoping that they're going to convert into a client, you do have to install certain code on your website to be able to relay that data back to LinkedIn to let it know if it's doing a good job or not, and this is going to allow it to optimize and for the AI to become more sophisticated over time. Very quickly, I'm just going to show you how to do this. You can just set up an insight tag, and you can label this as landing page opt-ins, and you could say this is a lead. You could say the default value is $1,000. You can keep these settings as the same. We're typically selecting last touch. You can select manual conversion setup. You're going to copy this code here, and you're going to install this across all the pages of your website. Now, once you're on your Funnel Builder's website, what you're simply going to do is you're going to select settings. You're going to head tracking code, paste this code, and now this will be installed across all the pages of your website. This is the base code, okay? This has to be installed on every single page, okay? This is very important. So once that's done, you can click save, and then you're set up. However, there's an additional step, which is you also need to install event-specific code. So basically what this means is the page that somebody sees after they achieve your desired result. If there's a thank you page after your lead opt-in page, you're going to install an event-specific code. You can enter in the URL there and click create, and now the lead event specifically will be only triggered once they cross that and hit that thank you page. So the base pixel code that we just installed has to be installed across all pages, and then the thank you page, that's where you're going to install your event-specific code snippet there. This is very important. Now, I recommend if you're just starting out that you just start with LinkedIn lead forms, you keep them on the platform, and therefore you don't need to worry about conversion tracking here. So that's why this is labeled as optional, and you can move on to the next step, which is setting up your ad. Now, as you can see here, we have our LinkedIn ads body copy. That's a 3,000 character limit, and we also have our headline, which is a 200 character limit. We have to insert our destination URL, and then we have to select the lead generation form that we want to associate with the ad and select save here. So you can see here we wrote get qualified roofing job from Google Maps, no ads needed, used by 500 plus roofers to fill their calendars without door knocking, chasing leads, or spending another dollar on ads. And then once you create that form, we did add a couple custom questions. Do you need more qualified roofing appointments? Is your company doing more than $1 million per year in revenue? Ordinarily, for most of the clients, we wouldn't recommend that you ask these questions because you can obtain that and you can estimate that just by checking out somebody's website. Now, in order to set up that lead generation form, you're going to head over here to lead generation forms. You're going to select create form. You're going to follow the instructions, and you're going to create something that looks like this. Now, it's very important that you choose which fields from the profile URL that you want to have auto-filled in that submission. This data is going to be able to be pulled into your CRM, and you can even use this data to have AI write custom email follow-up. So you can say in the email, so you can upload this with Zapier, push it into your CRM, push it into ChatGPT and said, hey, here's a 4-page prompt about my business. Here's all this information that came in from the form. I want you to write a custom email follow-up to this prospect that is specific and tailored to their business. And they could write, hi, John, excited to meet with you. You know, I took a look at your website and we're very sophisticated and we've done great work insert in your area. And I think your company size of 10 to 50 employees is the perfect sweet spot to work with us. I can see that you've had 10 plus years of working at that company. I look very excited to connecting with you. Click that link below if you'd like to schedule a time. All that can be done with the email and the SMS follow-up. And in a few years' time, we think it's even possible to where that data can be fed into robocallers where somebody can call them and have an eerily similar human-like person speaking to you on the phone that already knows all this information about your business. Now, it's very important that you select as much of this information as you think that you need because it's all free. It's all auto-filled. Remember, the prospect isn't manually, they don't know their LinkedIn profile URL off the top of their head. That's being auto-filled for them. Now, what we have found is sometimes people get spooked and they see, holy shit, this guy's getting all my information, my job title. I don't want to give him all this stuff. And they see that right before they're about to click submit on that LinkedIn profile page. So what we recommend is include all the information you need. The most important being the LinkedIn profile URL, because once you have this, you can obtain all of the rest of this information here. Does that make sense? But for simplicity's sake, we haven't seen think it'd affect conversion rate too much if you add in a few more other fields that you would like to have auto-filled within that submission. Go ahead and select the next page that you would like them to see thereafter. We recommend if you have a Calendly link, it will integrate directly with Calendly and allow them to book a call there. Unfortunately, the other Calendly and scheduling softwares don't allow you to do that. Or you can just say learn more, push them to your website where they can consume more content and learn more about your business. And then once this is created, you're going to click save. If assuming there's a valid privacy policy, it usually gets approved, and you're going to be able to associate that with all of your future campaigns. Now, what we recommend is that you start by testing about a dozen different job titles, industries, member skills, member groups, etc. Test about a dozen at about $20 to $30 a day each. LinkedIn ads, you do require a higher testing budget. On Meta ads, you can actually just test broad, have no audience whatsoever, and the AI will transcribe the video or the image ad that you're showing to them, and it will serve it to your ideal customer without any targeting instruction, which allows you to test at a lower budget because the only variable that you're then testing thereafter is the creative itself. Versus on LinkedIn ads, you need to test both different audiences and the different creatives. So you're going to burn a little bit more money in the beginning, and the required daily testing budget to make LinkedIn ads viable is approximately $200 to $300 per day for about a month, in my opinion. Versus Meta ads, you can get by with $50 to $100 a day if you're starting out. Now, after you launch, the metrics that we want to pay most attention to is the lead form completion rate and the cost per result and the average cost per click. What we're seeing with most of our clients is that if we're targeting the right audience, we can achieve a lead form completion rate of north of 10%. You want to optimize everything in your paid advertising campaigns from a top-down approach, meaning you start with the audience, then you start with the ad creative, and then you test the landing page. The reason is because everything earlier in the funnel influences everything downstream. So it doesn't make sense to focus on something downstream when it is at the effect of all the things that happened before that. So what we recommend you do is hold one variable constant, only change one variable constant at a time. You should have 3 to 5 image ads or 3 to 5 video ads, and then target about a dozen different audience combinations, launch them at a couple $100 a day, and start looking at what your cost per result is. Now, as you can see for this particular client, they're achieving leads for approximately $60 to about $150 here in this instance, which is fantastic. And it's typically what they're paying on Meta right now is about $400 to $500. And they're getting way more information here on LinkedIn ads than they would be getting on Meta ads. Now, what we recommend that you do is, let's say that you're willing to tolerate a $150 cost per lead. If you find that somebody spends twice past your KPI without the desired result that you would like, you can then shut off that particular campaign. So for instance, if I'm willing to pay $150 per lead, that may make sense based on the economics of your business, or it may not. But in this instance, we spent more than $300. We should shut off this particular ad set here. Now, the other thing that you have to pay attention to is typically the quality that comes as a result of these. So sometimes we might find that cheaper leads come from a particular audience, but they're not booking calls at the same rate, and they're not as qualified at the same rate as some of these other campaigns here. Now, what we recommend that you do is that after you launch your campaigns and you start generating leads, it's important you set up an automation such that all the leads automatically are pulled into a Google Sheet here where you can inspect each individual profile. So I can click into each lead here, take a look at their LinkedIn profile URL, see which campaign they came from here based on this column here, and then I can start to look at the data and see if it makes sense for me to continue targeting that particular audience. You see here, I can click down here to this tab here. We have some projections that we included for the client here, ranging from the break-even scenario to the optimized scenario, from a 1x ROAS to about a 5x ROAS, our average client being around a 2 to 3x return on paid advertising spend, and then we have the cost per lead being tracked over time. What you can see for this particular client, you can see the lead cost drops incredibly quickly in those first couple weeks of advertising because we're very quickly cutting out all of the audiences and the ad sets that aren't producing qualified leads or submissions. And then all of that gets pulled into a report here where you can see the cost per lead, the amount of bookings, the cost per scheduled call, the show rate, the close rate, and the total amount of deals won. So you can see this particular client achieved about a 2x return on paid advertising spend out of the gate at a $3,500 CPA. And typically those first few $1,000s that you're going to spend into advertising with LinkedIn are going to be very, very poor performing. On Meta, typically what you're kind of seeing out of the gate is typically what you're going to get with that batch of creatives with that landing page. Versus LinkedIn, as you can see, we made a couple shifts. We relaunched after our third launch, and we cut our lead cost by almost 80%. That's how much a small difference in the amount of targeting can make or break your performance. Remember, LinkedIn is a very unforgiving platform. We highly recommend that if you can, partner with an expert to help do this for you. Otherwise, you're typically going to burn more cash testing than what you would pay to an advertising agency that can help you get started for you to eventually take over thereafter. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to share with you guys today. I hope you feel more confident and excited about testing LinkedIn advertising for your business. It's a platform with tremendous upside potential. You're going to find that the occasional lead that comes through LinkedIn ads, not every single one, could be a tremendously large, life-changing, whale enterprise type of opportunity. And those types of opportunities are just very far and few between on a platform platform like Meta. And before we wrap things up, I just want to say if you're interested in working with myself or somebody on my team, go ahead and click the link below and schedule a time to chat. It's no cost, it's no obligation, and we have a range of different options for people that have wildly different monthly revenue and monthly advertising budgets. So if you found this video helpful, I encourage you to schedule a meeting below to speak with a member of my team. For businesses that do more than $50,000 to $100,000 per month in revenue, typically the best thing for you is going to be working with our Done For You agency, where you can have my entire team set up, manage, and optimize your paid advertising strategy. If you're doing less than $50,000 per month, we have consulting and done with you options to where you can still have access to myself plus my entire team, but it's going to be at a much lower cost and much more affordable for somebody who's just starting out. So go ahead, click that link below, schedule time to chat. I appreciate you taking the time with me today. I hope you found the video valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.